Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. We hope that you enjoy today's sermon by our pastoral staff at Christpoint Church. We also want you to know that if you have any questions, prayer requests, or need information on any of our ministry opportunities, you can email us at info@christpoint.church. We love you and we are praying that this will be the best year yet. Welcome home.
The difference between total victory and almost victory is the amount of times we strike the ground. The amount of times the king strike. The man of God, which he is already acknowledged he's the man of God. He's mourning that the connection to God is about to die. And he is saying to him, what do you say to me? And he says, this is what it means. Fire your arrow. He knows exactly what it means. He says, now strike the ground. He didn't tell him how many times. And he struck the ground 3 times. And watch what happens in verse 19. The man of God was angry. He was angry with him and said to him, you should have struck 5 or even 6 times. Then you would have struck down Syria until you had made an end of it. Now, this is very important, an end of it. But now you will only strike them down, Syria down 3 times. So, Elisha, notice what Elisha said, until you make an end of it. He didn't say an end of them. He said an end of it. So you could have struck the ground 5 or 6 times. That would have been double what you did. But instead, you're here. You don't even understand why you're here. You're here to seek me, and you're here to seek the Lord, not so you can have victory for the people, but just so you can make a better life maybe, and a little easier life for yourself, and maybe things won't get complicated for you. So here he is. He has the opportunity to strike the ground, but he won't do it. He strikes the ground 3 times. Strike the ground 3 times. Okay. I mean, it's almost like, this is the dumbest thing in the world. See, here's the thing. Please remember this. It's not the enemy that needs to be destroyed. It's not the enemy that needs to be destroyed. It's the occupation that needs to be destroyed. Because I'm going to tell you something. You're not killing the enemy. You're not killing the enemy. You can't kill the devil. You just got to kill his dwelling place. So it's not the enemy that needs to be destroyed. It's the mind where the place that the devil comes into that needs to be destroyed. The enemy has no power if he has no occupation. So let's get this. When he doesn't occupy a place in our thoughts, then he has no power. When he doesn't occupy a place in our family, then he has no power. See, our families are struggling because the devil, the enemy, has a place of occupation. I would just challenge you to look at it this way. Just imagine you're sitting at a table eating supper, and in that chair right there, it looks empty, but the devil's sitting right there. The devil's sitting right there. Paul Harvey's, I think it was the one that said, we allowed a predator and everything else to come into our home and to take over our children through a thing called a TV. And, we don't even know life without one, without several. You don't even have to have one anymore. You can watch TV wherever you are. I have it. I can watch TV right here or here right now. So the thing is we're allowing the devil into our family, but if he is not allowed there, then he has no occupation there. And if he has no occupation there, then he has no power. When he doesn't occupy a place in our family, he has no power. When he doesn't occupy a place in our vocabulary, then he has no power. When we don't speak and give him power through our speech, then he has no power. Yeah, well, I've always been an alcoholic. My father's always been an alcoholic. When I come from a family of alcoholics, I'll just always be an alcoholic. We just spoke all kinds of defeat into our life. I've always been heavy. I'll never be able to lose weight. We just spoke absolute defeat into what God wants to empower. So our vocabulary has a way of the devil having occupation, and then when he speaks, it weakens the vessel. King Joash was almost there. King Joash was almost there, but he had 3 strikes and he was out. 3 strikes. He could have struck 100 times. He knew what that meant, but instead he struck 3 times with the arrows. In our lives, let me challenge us right now, in our lives, we're not striking enough out of our lives. We're falling short. We're almost there. We're not striking enough out of our lives. I think sometimes we think just to show up on Sunday is a strike. It'll work. We think just to call somebody to ask them to pray for my daughter, it's a strike. It'll work. But we don't put enough effort to continue that walk with the Lord past the honeymoon period. We've got to strike the ground, and we've got to keep striking the ground, and we've got to strike until the place of occupation, we own it back. Because like I said, you're not killing the devil, but you can kill the place where he dwells. So we're leaving room for occupation. Like I said, we can't kill the enemy. I mean, you're not capable of it. So we can kill that place of occupation. Let me tell you about my friend. This has been 30 years ago. That's 30 years ago. So my friend, he just all of a sudden, he knows, I mean, you could tell if you've ever been around me, I don't like smoking. And mostly because it killed my father, but, partly because it killed my father, mostly because I don't like it. So he would go with me and he'd smoke, and I'd just fuss, get mad. I'd say, get out of my truck. And I mean, of course, we're like brothers, so I could talk to him however I wanted. And he did me. So he was a hoot. And so one day, he gets in the truck. He says, I quit. Man, we went like 3 days. He quit smoking. And I was so proud. I esteemed him. I gave him accolades. I bragged on him the entire 3 or 4 days. You have quit smoking. I'm so proud of you. You're doing so well. Please don't back up now. So one morning, of course, I grew up with him. One morning, I'm over at his house, and his dad, his dad was there. And I said, "What do you think? Is it cool? He's quit smoking." He said, "He didn't quit smoking. He just quit buying. He's smoking on mine." See, here's the thing. My friend left room for occupation. You can say you're going to quit, but if you leave room for occupation, then what happens is the door's open and the enemy comes right back in. So he was just leaving room. In other words, I was smoking like a freight train when I get away from Steve. He told me he quit because he got tired of hearing me fuss. So he left room for occupation. Israel's independence and Israel's freedom was almost there. They were almost there. See, here's what the king represents. The king represents the head. The king represents the thought, the mind. And the king had the opportunity and the control and the power to strike the ground more than 3 times, but 3 times and he was out. He stopped short. We have got to stop stopping short. We have got to quit coming up short in our walk with the Lord. Because I'm going to tell you, I play some golf, and I've watched Ronnie Maynard come up short a lot. A lot. So I mean, it happens on a regular basis. So, you know what? But he doesn't quit. And really, it's probably the opposite. But I'm going to tell it on him because I have the microphone. But it's easy to quit when you come up short. So, see, Elisha asked for a double portion. See, now we have Elisha, and we have Elisha. He's challenged the king, and he says, "King, look, you could have ended this place of occupation, but you didn't." So now let's look at Elisha. And Elisha, I want you to look at something. Elisha asked back in the days with Elijah, when he walked with Elijah's mentor, he asked for a simple thing: give me a double portion of anointing, Lord. I want double what is on him to be on me. So that's all he asked for. And the man of God, Elijah, so don't get confused between Elijah and Elisha. So it actually is probably in Hebrew pronounced Elisha. So you can pronounce it that way and not get confused. But he said, "I want a double portion." And Elijah said, "That's not possible. But I tell you what, if your eyes are upon me, when you see me leave this world, then that double portion will be granted to you." He said, "Why don't you go do something?" He said, "I'm not leaving you." Why don't you go like everybody else has left? I'm not leaving. So he kept his eyes upon him. And when the chariot swooped down, took him off into heaven, he didn't die. He was carried away to heaven. Elisha saw it, and a double portion was laid upon him, and his mantle fell to the ground of Elijah, and he put it upon him, and he continued on, and the very first thing he did was reopen the waters of the Jordan that the prophet Elijah had just opened. So there was one and one. So Elisha asked for a double portion of anointing that was upon Elijah. He stayed the course. He fulfilled his commitment. God granted him what he asked for. Elisha took his mantle, and of the recorded miracles, they're a little bit skewed because some believe, just a speaking of prophecy was a miracle. So some are like, Elijah's 8 and Elisha's almost double. Some say 10 from Elijah, and some say Elisha almost doubled. Some say 14. And some say Elisha almost doubled. See, here's the thing. He almost doubled the record. Man, I want to set out, I just want to break a record. There's nobody in here who wouldn't want to break a record. The record was almost broken. Of the recorded miracles, he was almost there. He almost doubled them. He would have been known as the man who doubled the miracles, or God through him, of Elijah. But here's the thing. I don't think anybody's ever much even thought about it. See, I wouldn't want to go down in history as Mr. Almost There. We got Mr. Awesome and Mr. Almost There. None of us want to go down in history as being Mr. Almost There. So in verse 20, in Elisha's life, he almost doubled these miracles. Got that close. He was almost there. And I want to show you something in verse 20. Elisha died. So this is just right after. Elisha actually dies. So the very first thing we see is Elisha died. So Elisha died, and they were burying him. Or he had been buried. And it had been time. And now see, these Moabite marauders or raiders or thieves, they would come in the spring, and they would just pillage and rob. And so they were approaching, and this is what happens. They're digging another grave, or we would say digging, but it was a tomb. So they were preparing another guy for the tomb. And all of a sudden we see the marauders coming, we see the Moabites coming, we see the enemy coming. See, here's the thing. We can't stop the enemy from coming, just like we can't kill him. The enemy's going to keep coming. Number one is we can't kill him, so we have to strike him out of the place of occupation so he doesn't have a place to stay. Number two is he's going to keep coming. We can't keep the enemy from coming. It was every spring's business. The Moabite marauders or the Moabite raiders or the thieves would come in, and they would just wreak havoc. And so what's happening, and we just sung about it a few minutes ago, is there's a man that was dead, and all of a sudden, everybody hide. Everybody hide. Here comes the Moabites. Everybody hide. And they took the body, and they threw the body over the side, and all of a sudden, they're all hiding in here because, number one, we don't want to be killed because they didn't care. They didn't care. They didn't care to kill someone, rob them, whatever. So we're going to hide. They're hiding him. They're hiding the body. They're hiding themselves. And they throw the body. And where's the body land? Up on the bones of Elisha. Mr. Almost There. Mr. Almost There. The bones of Elisha. What happens to the man that was thrown upon the bones of Elisha? I think we know the song very well. Dude just gets up. Breath comes back into him. Life comes back into him. He gets up. And please let me see this and picture this in my own way. You can have your own way. I see them hiding, and they're like, they're hiding. They're like, have they gone yet? And dude's like, what are we looking at? I mean, can you imagine? This fear all of a sudden is way less than this fear. What in the world's going on? It's a little small hole in the ground, and all of a sudden, dude comes up. What are we looking at? So, they threw the bones upon. And see, here's the thing. There's nothing holy about those bones. There's nothing holy. He was a man just like you are. You're a man and a woman, and I am a man. So he was just a man. But see, his anointing, his double portion was not complete, and it was waiting upon that moment. when we walk in that favor, maybe sometimes we're waiting upon that moment because we're all living in a tomb. We're all living in a tomb. It's what we do in that tomb that makes the difference. So they threw this man over here, and all of a sudden he just jumps up and says, "What's up? What's going on?" Immediately life came back in him and stood at his feet. With this last miracle, Elisha completed that double portion. See, if you look at those figures, it'll give you different statistical figures, but it's always double. It's always double. See, here's the thing. If we want a double portion, we've got to realize, here's one thing we've got to realize, it's going to take a double amount of sacrifice, a double amount of servanthood, and a double amount of sacrifice. But you know what? We might just get a double amount of everything else of the Lord too. And you say, "Well, I want that." Well, it's go after it. Let's do it. Let's do it because it's going to require more than what we think it's going to require. In this last miracle, he completed that double portion in life. Elisha spoke miracles. Elisha turned a small amount of oil into a massive amount of oil. On and on and on. He even restored life. In death, he restored life, and his mission was completed. His ministry was complete. Sometimes we're just not finished. Sometimes there's just more to do. And you know what? Maybe we're living in a tomb. Because, I feel like this is a good description. It's a good parallel. We're all living in a tomb, and every single aspect of someone in that tomb represents us. And you know what? At times we feel like we're dead. At times we feel like we need to be resurrected. At times we're living in fear. At times we're in darkness. See, the thing is we've got to realize, even in that place, God is still after us. Moabites would come every spring, so let me just reiterate that. The enemy's going to keep coming. The enemy's going to keep coming. But at some point, we have two options. At some point, we're going to have, the enemy's going to keep coming, and we have two options. We can let him in and take what he wants, take what belongs to us, and we just live in fear. Or we can stand in the power of the resurrected Jesus. Because I'm going to tell you something. I promise you, Moabite raiders had no more attention anymore. I don't care if they're coming or not. When the guy got up, when the guy's life was restored to him, there was no more attention on the enemy. The attention was now on the resurrection. When our attention goes to the resurrection, everything else starts falling into place. Everything. So, this walk, called serving the Lord, it's a journey. It's a journey. We talked about this weekend. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And I think John Maxwell says, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, take someone with you. So here's the thing. It's a journey, and it takes time. Maybe it takes time to get there. Maybe it's time to touch what brings life instead of what promotes death. I think sometimes we're focusing on what promotes death, what's going to rob us of our victory, instead of focusing on what brings life. Don't be afraid of the attack in front of us when we can see the victory beside us. We've got to realize we're standing next to the victory. We're standing in the victory. We're standing in the shadow of the victory. I think we're focusing too much on the threat, not as much on the solution. Even in our deepest grave, we're never out of God's reach. So let's take one last look at something. Remember that ancient culture of the Middle East, of Middle Eastern warfare, where you'd shoot that arrow. Remember that. See, the arrow shot, the dart shot into the opposing land. It was a declaration of war or hostility. So the intention was to proclaim victory. So in other words, once I strike that land with my arrow or spear or dart, once I strike that land, I'm claiming ownership of that land. So, occupation, control, victory. An army that came in and overthrew that other army would enslave those people, would carry them off, would enslave them. Let me show you something in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 16. In all circumstances, this is what Paul says, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts, all the flaming arrows of the evil one. You see what the devil's trying to do? He's trying to shoot an arrow into your heart to claim victory. And our level of faith is the only thing that's going to keep him from doing the very same thing that Joash had the opportunity to do. This kind of brings a little bit more light to this scripture, because it was customary in that time to speak in this fashion. The devil is trying to claim ownership. He's firing with everything that he has. You can hide your eyes if you want, but the devil has his sights on you. He has his sights on your family. He has his sights on your peace. He has his sights on your happiness. He has his sights on your Jesus relationship, and he's firing arrows I'm talking about, he's up the game. He's got fully automatic weapons now, and he's firing them as fast as he can fire them. He's firing arrows into each of our lives, and he's declaring ownership. Now, here's the thing. The only ownership he can declare is occupation. He don't own any of this. He can only rent space if we allow him to rent space or steal space. And this is a sad thing. Even the Christians allowing him to steal space. Because I'm going to tell you something. God has to remind me several times, the battles that we encounter, the devil has to remind me, because my first initial reaction is to take control and fix it. And some things I just have no power over. I cannot fix them. So I have to, that's when the Lord reminds me, you know what? You need to remember you have one option here, to take up your shield of faith. Because your shield of faith is going to keep that occupation away. Because once I see it differently, I sing this song differently. Once I have a different mindset, the song doesn't have the same meaning. He wants to occupy your thoughts and my thoughts. He wants to occupy your life and my life. He wants to occupy your intentions and my intentions. And here's the thing we have to do. We have to strike the ground more times than he strikes at us. Because we have to continue to strike him out of our lives and fire back. If he wins, he will enslave everyone in your life that you know. Just like firing into that in that army, going into that land and taking every one of those people prisoners, they will become slaves to these people. That's exactly what he wants to do, is enslave everyone in your family. And he will do it, and he will do it with everything that he has. There's only one path to victory. Strike more than he strikes, remove his place of occupation. If you can do that, and it's not hard. It's just remember, it's not hard. Stop focusing on the marauders and start focusing on the victory beside us. Because we're all living in our own tomb. Stop focusing on what's coming. In other words, I can't control those guys coming at me. I can't control that enemy attacking me. But what I can control what happens inside. And what happens inside, I'm going to fall back on the bones as many times as I have to. I'm going to strike the ground as many times as I can. So eventually, he'll back off to some degree. But eventually, it becomes more, there's more rhythm. And it becomes more of a rhythm. It's not as hard. So let me show you something. Here's the thing. The honeymoon won't last forever. When, Tina and I have been married almost 35 years. She chased after me, and we got married. And it's been almost 35 years. And this is one thing that we've done in our marriage and made sure that we've always done this, is it's always been an adventure from day one. We have that same honeymoon mentality as we had 35 years ago. I can easily say that. I'm not sure if she can, but I can. Here's the thing. In our relationship with the Lord, this is what happens. People go, whoosh, man, I love it. God's awesome. God's awesome. I love the Lord. I'm going to serve the Lord. And as the honeymoon begins to wane, they just quit. I get that. Seriously, that frustrates me. Because I feel like I'm caring more about your relationship with the Lord than you are. It's like coming to me with a marriage problem. I want you to fix my marriage, but I'm not willing to do anything to help you fix my marriage. So, you want me to care more for your marriage than you do. See, we've got to make sure the honeymoon continues to last. We got to make sure that we're not setting our sights on the emotion of Jesus. We're not trading the addiction of something in the past for an addiction to Jesus. God's never called us to be addicted to Him. He's called us to serve Him and to love Him, because when you're addicted, that means the emotion. You're addicted to the emotion. You're addicted to the excitement. You're addicted to the thing. But God doesn't want us to be addicted to the emotion of Him. He wants us to love Him. He wants us to have a relationship with Him and to know Him in every area and every aspect of knowing Him. So we continue, and you know what? And then after a while, we continue to start getting back up on a high place. The honeymoon won't last forever. We have to purpose not to quit. We have to purpose not to stop short. Because when we stop short, we have failed. So, let me challenge you. Stand with us, please. Let me challenge you and just say it this way. God is wanting you to kick the devil out. He's wanting you to kick the enemy out. And He's not wanting you to do it without Him, without His help. He's wanting you to do it with His help. He's wanting you to do it with Him there, with Him empowering you. He wants to give us the tools to get this done. Because we can't do it without Him. But what He is saying is it's our job to strike the ground. See, Elisha could have spoken and said, look, here's the deal. Just go whip them. I'll lay my hands on you. And how, But he allowed the king, which represents the mind, which the body follows, He allowed the king to strike the ground. You're the one that chose to almost win. You're the one that chose almost victory. King Joash, Mr. Almost There. Let's make sure we finish the fight. Hey guys, Pastor Steve here, and it is freedom time again. Yes, it's that time of year. Freedom Celebration is just ahead, so we want you to make plans to be there. I'm going to kick it over to Denny Wayne. He's going to give you all the details, and we're going to tell you all about what's planned for this year.
White County Executive Denny Wayne Robinson here, encouraging everyone to come out July the 2nd for a 3rd annual Freedom Celebration here in White County. It'll be at the White County Recreational Complex down on the Highway 70 ball fields, what we call the Smithville Highway. So head out west and you'll see it there on the left. Gates open at 4 o'clock. There'll be lots of things there, lots of vendors, lots of food. Just a good time. Can't wait to see you there. And now over to you, Fuzzy.
Hey, this is Ron Fuzzy Five for the band Shattered from Sparta, Tennessee. We're looking forward to playing the Freedom Celebration again this year at the football fields off the Smithville Highway. We had a great time last year. The crowd was unreal, and we hope to have great weather again this year. Great music, great fellowship, and great food. So we look forward to seeing you there this year. Take it away, Mr. Steve.
Okay, so while this is our 3rd annual Freedom Celebration, there are all kinds of cool things planned. We've made it bigger and we've made it better. All kinds of vendors will be there. Gates open at 4. Don't forget that. It is on July 2nd on a Friday afternoon. Do not forget that. Everything from food vendors will be there, craft vendors, face painting, you name it. We have it for you that evening, and the band will be playing, and after dark, wow, the fireworks, professional pyro shows will be shooting the fireworks into the air after dark. We invite each and every one of you, bring your family, bring your lawn chairs, and have some fun. We look forward to seeing you at Freedom Celebration this year.